I said, but Sarah, we've been planning this together since month 3. I'm still shaking as I write this. I don't even know if I'm looking for advice or just need to get this out because I feel like I'm losing my mind. Everything I thought I knew about my life just imploded in the span of 48 hours, and I'm sitting here in a hotel room at 2 in the morning trying to piece together how I became the villain in my own love story. Let me back up. My name is Alex, I'm 32, and until 3 days ago I thought I was in the most stable, loving relationship of my life. Sarah and I met 5 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding. Ironic, right? She caught the bouquet, I caught the garter, and we had to do that awkward dance together, except it wasn't awkward. She had this laugh that made everyone around her smile, these bright green eyes that seemed to see right through all my carefully constructed walls, and we talked until 4 in the morning at the hotel bar, while everyone else had gone to bed. Our relationship progressed naturally. She moved in after 8 months. We adopted a dog together after a year. We talked about everything, our future, kids, where we wanted to live, what kind of house we'd buy. And here's the thing that makes this whole situation so absolutely insane. We talked about marriage, a lot. Specifically, we had discussed getting engaged this year. It wasn't some secret plan I was springing on her. We had looked at rings together. She had sent me screenshots of styles she liked. 3 months into dating, we'd had one of those late-night talks where she'd told me she'd never believed in soulmates until she met me, and that she knew we'd get married someday. So when I planned this elaborate proposal, I thought I was giving her everything she wanted. I worked with her best friend Maya for weeks. I booked the same gazebo where we'd first danced at that wedding 5 years ago. I contacted the photographer who'd shot that wedding to capture the moment. I had her parents flying in from Boston, my parents coming from Seattle. Her sister was hiding in the wings with champagne. I'd spent 3 months' salary on the exact ring she'd pointed out in a jewelry store 6 months ago, the one she'd gone back to look at 3 times, the one she'd casually mentioned to Maya she dreamed about. The plan was perfect. We'd go to our friend Jennifer's anniversary party. I'd suggest a walk to see the venue where it all began, and I'd propose at sunset in front of everyone who mattered. Maya had confirmed Sarah suspected nothing. Her mom had texted me that morning saying she was crying happy tears on the plane. But here's where everything went wrong. The day before the proposal, I came home early from work. I was anxious, excited, terrified in that good way. I wanted to see Sarah, maybe take her to dinner, just be with her before the big day. I used my key to let myself in, and I heard voices coming from our bedroom. My first thought wasn't suspicion. Sarah worked from home as a graphic designer and often took video calls, but then I heard a man's voice, and it wasn't coming from her computer speakers. I should have announced myself. I should have called out, but something in my gut twisted, and I found myself walking quietly down the hallway. The bedroom door was cracked open, and I could see Sarah sitting on our bed, and across from her in the reading chair I'd bought her for her birthday was a man I'd never seen before. He was maybe mid-30s, wearing an expensive suit and holding Sarah's hand. I couldn't move. I just stood there, frozen, listening. "You have to tell him," the man said. "Sarah, this has gone on long enough. It's not fair to anyone, especially not to Alex." Sarah was crying. "I know, David. I know. I just don't know how. He's planned this whole life for us, and I don't know how to tell him that I don't want it." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. David leaned forward. "Do you love him?" There was a pause that felt like it lasted a year. "I care about him. He's safe. He's kind. But no, not the way I should. Not the way I love you." I didn't hear the rest. I backed away silently, left the apartment, and sat in my car for 2 hours trying to process what I'd just heard. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. I had 23 text messages. Maya asking if I needed anything for tomorrow. My mom saying they'd landed early. The photographer confirming timing. Jennifer making sure we'd be at her party. All these people invested in a future that apparently only I wanted. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to burst back in there and confront them both. Part of me wanted to drive away and never come back. But the rational part of my brain, the part that was already trying to protect itself from complete devastation, told me I needed to know the whole truth before I did anything. I called Maya. "Hey, I need you to be completely honest with me. Has Sarah said anything to you about having doubts about us?" The silence on the other end told me everything. "Alex, what happened?" "Just answer the question." Maya sighed. "She's been stressed lately. Wedding jitters, I thought. I told her everyone gets nervous before getting engaged. I figured once you proposed, she'd realize it was just cold feet." "So she has expressed doubts?" "I mean minor ones, nothing serious, just normal anxiety about big life changes." But her voice wavered, and I knew Maya was either lying or Sarah hadn't told her everything. I made a decision in that moment that probably wasn't healthy, but I was running on adrenaline and heartbreak. I didn't cancel anything. I wanted to see how this would play out. If Sarah would come clean before I put her on the spot, or if she'd let me propose in front of everyone while secretly planning to leave me. That night, Sarah came home acting completely normal, cheerful even. She kissed me, asked about my day, suggested we order Thai food and watch our favorite show. I played along, studying her face for any sign of guilt, any indication that she'd tell me the truth. Nothing. She was either a phenomenal actress or completely comfortable lying to me. "You seem distracted," she said during dinner. "Everything okay?" The irony almost made me laugh. "Just tired, big project at work." She nodded sympathetically and rubbed my shoulders. "Well, tomorrow's Jennifer's party. That'll be fun and relaxing." I nearly broke then, nearly told her I knew everything. But I didn't. I wanted to see how far she'd take this charade. The next day, the day of the planned proposal, Sarah spent the morning at hot yoga with Maya. I used that time to make some calls. I didn't cancel the proposal, but I did some investigating. I have a friend, Marcus, who's a private investigator. Not for anything official, but he has ways of finding information. I sent him a photo of David that I'd managed to screenshot from the doorbell camera footage, and by noon, Marcus called me back. "Alex, man, I don't know what you're involved in, but you need to be careful. That guy, David Thornton, he's a lawyer, family law specifically, divorce attorney, one of the most expensive in the state." My blood ran cold. What? Yeah, he's partner at Thornton and Associates. High-profile divorce cases, asset protection, the works. How do you know this guy? I thanked Marcus and hung up, my mind reeling. Sarah had been meeting with a divorce attorney, but we weren't married, unless this was preparation, unless she was planning to string me along until after the wedding and then divorce me for money. But that didn't make sense either. I made good money as a software engineer, but nothing that would warrant one of the most expensive divorce attorneys in the state. Sarah made decent money herself. None of it added up, which made it somehow worse. Jennifer's party started at 6. Sarah got dressed in a beautiful blue sundress, the one I'd bought her for our 4th anniversary. She looked stunning, and I felt sick. We drove to the venue, making small talk about Jennifer and her husband Tom, about how sweet it was that they were celebrating 5 years, the same milestone we were hitting. 5 years is big, Sarah said, looking out the window. Everything changes after 5 years. What do you mean? I asked, gripping the steering wheel tighter. I don't know, it's just a significant number. Like, you really know someone after 5 years. You know if it's going to work long-term. And do you know if it's going to work long-term? She looked at me then, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear, guilt. Why are you asking me that? Just making conversation. We arrived at the venue, and I saw Maya's car already there. My parents were supposed to stay hidden at a nearby restaurant until I texted them. Sarah's family was doing the same. The photographer was disguised as a regular party guest. Everything was in place for a proposal that I was 90% sure I wasn't going to go through with. The party was nice. Jennifer had done a beautiful job with the decorations, all twinkling lights and flowers. People were dancing, drinking, celebrating love and commitment. It felt like a cruel joke. I nursed a beer and watched Sarah chat with friends, laugh at jokes, act like everything was perfect. Around 8, Maya pulled me aside. Are you ready? Sun sets in 30 minutes. It's going to be perfect. I looked at her, really looked at her. Did you know Sarah's been meeting with a divorce attorney? Maya's face went white. What? No, that's insane. Why would she? You're not even married. That's what I'd like to know. Alex, listen, maybe you misunderstood something. Sarah loves you. She's just nervous. Every bride gets nervous. She's not a bride yet, Maya, and based on what I overheard yesterday, she might never want to be. I told Maya everything then, about David, about the conversation I'd overheard, about Sarah saying she didn't love me the way she should. Maya looked devastated, which made me feel slightly better. At least Sarah's best friend hadn't been in on whatever this was. What are you going to do? Maya asked. I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to propose anyway, just to see what she says in front of everyone. Part of me wants to expose her right here and now. Part of me just wants to leave. Maya grabbed my arm. Don't make any rash decisions. Let me talk to her first. Let me see if I can get her to tell the truth. I watched as Maya went over to Sarah and pulled her away from the group she was chatting with. They walked toward the far end of the garden, and I saw Maya gesturing emphatically. Sarah's body language changed. She wrapped her arms around herself defensively. The conversation looked heated. Then Sarah glanced back at me, and our eyes met across the party. She knew. Somehow she knew that I knew. She said something sharp to Maya and then walked toward me with purpose. I braced myself for whatever was coming. "We need to talk," she said, grabbing my hand and pulling me away from the party, toward the parking lot. "Sarah, what's going on?" She whirled on me and there were tears in her eyes. "Maya told me you know about David." "You mean about you meeting with a divorce attorney behind my back while we've supposedly been planning a future together?" "Yeah, I know about that." "It's not what you think." I laughed bitterly. "Then please, enlighten me, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been planning an exit strategy while letting me plan a proposal." "I didn't know you were going to propose." "Bullshit, Sarah, we've been talking about this for years. You sent me pictures of rings. We discussed getting engaged this summer." She was full on crying now. I know, but I got scared, and David was helping me figure things out, and it just got so complicated." "Who is David to you? And don't lie to me." She took a shaky breath. "He's my ex-husband." The world stopped. "You're what?" "I was married before, when I was 23. It lasted 2 years, and it was a disaster, and I never told you because I was ashamed and I wanted to start fresh and I didn't think it mattered." I couldn't breathe. 5 years. 5 years together, and she'd never mentioned being married before. How does that even make sense? Wouldn't it have come up, legally, financially, any number of ways? "I changed my name back before we met. It was finalized years before I knew you existed. It's not on any of my current paperwork. It just never came up." "So all this time, you've been lying to me." "Not lying, just not telling you about a part of my past that was over and done with." "Then why is your ex-husband in our bedroom holding your hand and talking about what you're going to tell me?" She flinched. "You were there." "I came home early yesterday, heard everything. Heard you tell him you don't love me the way you should, that I'm safe, that you care about me but you're not in love with me." Sarah covered her face with her hands. "Oh God, Alex, I was just scared. Cold feet, I do love you." "Then why were you meeting with him at all?" "Because he reached out to me a few months ago, said he wanted closure, wanted to apologize for how things ended. We met for coffee just once and then he kept texting, and I should have blocked him, but there was this part of me that felt like I had unfinished business, and then he started saying things about how he'd changed, how he still had feelings for me, and it messed with my head. I felt like I was in a nightmare." "So you've been having an emotional affair with your secret ex-husband while planning a future with me?" "No, it wasn't an affair. I never did anything physical. I just talked to him a few times." "And fell back in love with him, apparently." "I'm not in love with him." I was confused. He was representing this exciting, passionate thing from my past, and you're this steady, reliable future, and I got overwhelmed trying to figure out what I wanted. The words hit me like a slap. Steady, reliable, you make me sound like a Honda Civic. "That's not what I meant." "But it's what you said to him, isn't it? I'm the safe choice, the boring one, the guy you settle for when the exciting option doesn't work out." "Alex, please, I choose you. I want to be with you." "Do you, or do you want the life I can give you? The stability, the nice house, the planned future? Because there's a difference, Sarah." Before she could answer, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. "Honey, we've been waiting at the restaurant for 45 minutes. When should we head over?" I looked at Sarah, standing there in the dress I'd bought her, crying over a secret ex-husband she'd never mentioned, and I made a decision. "I need you to go back to the party," I said quietly. "Tell everyone I got sick and had to leave. Make up whatever story you want. You're good at that." "What are you doing?" "I'm canceling a proposal and probably ending a relationship. Unless you can look me in the eye right now and tell me, with absolute certainty, that you're in love with me and not just in love with the idea of the life I was offering you." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I think I need time to figure out what I want." And there it was, the truth I'd been afraid of. Yeah, that's what I thought. I walked to my car, leaving her standing in the parking lot. I texted my parents and her parents, saying the proposal was off and I'd explain later. I texted the photographer to cancel. I texted Maya and told her to take care of Sarah because I couldn't be around her right now. Then I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. I ended up at a bar an hour away from the city, where no one knew me and I could just sit and process the fact that my 5-year relationship had been built on a foundation of lies. I stayed at a hotel that night, ignored the 73 texts from Sarah, the calls from both sets of parents, the concerned messages from friends. I just sat in the dark hotel room and replayed every moment of our relationship, trying to figure out what was real and what was performance. The next morning, I went back to our apartment when I knew Sarah would be at work. I packed a bag with enough clothes and essentials for a week, grabbed my laptop, and left. I texted her that I needed space and time to think, and I'd reach out when I was ready to talk. She responded immediately, "Please don't do this. I love you. I made a mistake, but we can work through this. Please." I didn't answer. I stayed with my buddy Connor for a few days. He knew something was wrong but didn't push, just gave me his spare room and beer when I needed it. I told my parents a simplified version, that Sarah and I were having serious problems and the engagement was off indefinitely. My mom cried, which somehow made it worse. She loved Sarah. Everyone loved Sarah. On day 4, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Alex, this is David Thornton. I think we should talk." Every muscle in my body tensed. "I have nothing to say to you. Please just hear me out. 5 minutes. There are things about this situation you don't understand." I should have hung up, but curiosity and anger got the better of me. "Fine, 5 minutes. Can we meet in person? There are things I'd rather not discuss over the phone." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my office the next day. I told Connor where I was going and to call the cops if he didn't hear from me in 2 hours. Connor thought I was being paranoid, but I was meeting my girlfriend's secret ex-husband, who was also a high-powered attorney. Paranoia seemed reasonable. David was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees. He stood when he saw me, extending his hand. I didn't take it. "Thank you for coming," he said, sitting back down. I sat across from him, arms crossed. "Dog." He took a breath. "First, I want to apologize. My involvement in your relationship with Sarah was inappropriate, and I take full responsibility for the confusion and pain I've caused." "Great, apology noted. Is that all?" "No," he slid one of the coffees toward me. I didn't touch it. "I need to tell you some things about Sarah that she should have told you herself, but since she hasn't, I feel morally obligated to." "More secrets. Fantastic." Sarah and I got married young, too young. We were 22 and 23, head over heels, completely convinced we'd beat the odds. The first year was great. The second year, things started to crack. We wanted different things, fought constantly, grew apart. The divorce was messy but necessary. We hadn't spoken in almost 8 years when I reached out a few months ago. "Why did you reach out?" He looked uncomfortable. "I'm getting remarried. My fiancé suggested I make peace with my past, tie up loose ends, that sort of thing. So I found Sarah on social media and sent her a message. Just a simple, 'Hey, I hope you're well. I'm sorry for how things ended. I'm in a good place now and I hope you are too,' kind of thing." And she responded. Immediately, enthusiastically. We met for coffee to catch up and it was nice, friendly. We talked about our lives, our careers. She mentioned you. It was all very cordial and mature, but then she started texting me more frequently, asking to meet up again. The conversations got deeper, more personal. She started confiding in me about her relationship with you. I felt sick. What did she say? David looked me in the eye. She said you were perfect on paper. Successful, kind, stable, ready for marriage and family. Everything she thought she wanted, but that she felt like something was missing, that she cared deeply for you but wasn't sure she was in love with you. Hearing it confirmed made it real in a way I hadn't fully processed yet. And what did you say? At first, I told her what anyone would say, that cold feet are normal, that no relationship is perfect, that if she loved you, she should work on it. But she kept coming back to the same concerns. And then she asked me if I thought it was possible to love someone and still know they're not right for you. What the hell kind of question is that? An honest one. He leaned forward. Alex, I'm not trying to hurt you more than you already are, but I think Sarah has been trying to force herself to feel something she doesn't feel. And I think part of that is because she's still not over some trauma from our marriage. What trauma? He hesitated. During our second year of marriage, Sarah got pregnant. We hadn't planned it, but we were excited. Terrified, but excited. She miscarried at 14 weeks. It devastated both of us, but especially Sarah. She spiraled into a depression that she refused to get help for. She pushed me away, pushed everyone away. That's really what ended our marriage. Not the miscarriage itself, but her inability to process it and my inability to help her. I felt my anger deflate slightly, replaced by a confusing mix of sympathy and betrayal. Sarah had never mentioned any of this, not in 5 years. Why are you telling me this? Because when Sarah and I started talking again, a lot of those old feelings came back for her. Not romantic feelings for me, but grief and trauma she never properly dealt with. She started seeing me as this symbol of her past, this road not taken, this passionate but doomed thing. And I think she started comparing that intensity of feeling, even though it was mostly pain and chaos, to the stability she has with you, and stable felt boring by comparison. So I'm boring. No, you're healthy, but Sarah might not be ready for healthy. She might still be attracted to the drama, the intensity, the chaos that characterized our relationship, even though it nearly destroyed her. I sat back, processing. You said you're getting married. What does your fiancé think about all this? She doesn't know the extent of it. She knows I had coffee with my ex-wife once. She doesn't know about the ongoing texts and meetings. That's on me, and I'll have to deal with the consequences. But I realized this week that I've been enabling Sarah's avoidance of her real issues, and in the process, I've been emotionally unfaithful to my partner and complicit in her betrayal of you. So I'm here, confessing to a stranger, because someone needs to be honest in this situation. Does Sarah know you're here? No, and she'd be furious if she did. But Alex, you deserve to know what you're dealing with. Sarah needs therapy, probably has needed it for years. She needs to process her trauma and figure out what she actually wants from life instead of just following a script of what she thinks she should want. And you deserve someone who chooses you wholeheartedly, not someone who's with you because you're the logical choice. I hated that he was making sense. I hated that this stranger, this person who'd been part of the betrayal, was the one giving me clarity. What do you want me to do with this information? Whatever you think is right. I'm not telling you to leave her or forgive her. I'm just giving you context that she should have given you years ago. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I asked the question I wasn't sure I wanted the answer to. Do you still have feelings for her? No, I care about her as someone I once loved, someone I share history with, but I'm not in love with her. I love my fiancé. What I had with Sarah was intense but toxic. We were terrible for each other. I think part of why Sarah's been gravitating back toward me is because she's scared of the next step with you, and I represent an escape back to a time when things were chaotic, but she didn't have to make big, adult decisions about her future. That's a pretty convenient analysis. Maybe, or maybe it's the truth from someone who knows her in a way you don't. He stood up. I won't contact Sarah again. I've told my fiancé I need to cut off all contact with my ex, and I'm following through. What you do from here is your choice, but I wanted you to have all the information. He left, and I sat there with 2 cold coffees, trying to reorganize my entire understanding of the woman I'd spent 5 years with. I didn't go back to Connor's apartment. I drove to the cemetery where my grandmother was buried. She'd passed away 2 years ago, and I'd always felt like I could think clearly when I visited her. I sat by her headstone and talked out loud, telling her everything. It probably looked crazy to anyone passing by, but it helped. My phone rang. It was Maya. Alex, thank God, I've been trying to reach you for days. Sarah is a mess. She's barely eating, barely sleeping, just crying constantly. I know you're hurt and you have every right to be, but please just talk to her. Let her explain. David already explained. Silence, you talked to David. He called me, told me about the miscarriage, the depression, the trauma Sarah's been avoiding. All the things she should have told me herself but didn't. Shit, Alex, I didn't know if it was my place to tell you. She made me promise years ago never to mention it. You knew this whole time, you knew she'd been married before, that she'd lost a baby, all of it. She's my best friend. She told me when we met in college, right after her divorce, but she was so adamant about keeping it private, about moving forward instead of dwelling on the past. I thought she'd tell you when she was ready. We were together for 5 years, Maya. 5 years. We talked about getting married, having kids. Don't you think that would have been relevant information? Yes, I told her that multiple times. I said she needed to tell you before you got engaged, that you couldn't build a marriage on secrets. But she kept saying she would, just not yet. The timing wasn't right. And then David came back into her life and everything got so fucked up. I could hear Maya crying now too. I'm sorry, Alex, I should have said something. I should have made her tell you. This whole thing is such a disaster. I need you to be completely honest with me right now. Does Sarah love me? Maya took a shaky breath. I think she loves you in the way she's capable of loving someone right now, but I also think she's deeply damaged and hasn't done the work to heal. And I think she convinced herself that marrying you and having the perfect life would fix her, like she could just skip over the hard part of dealing with her trauma. But that's not how it works. So I was a band-aid. No, you were hope. You were her chance at a do-over. But she didn't realize you can't have a genuine do-over without first addressing what went wrong the first time. We talked for another hour. Maya told me more details about Sarah's first marriage, the miscarriage, the depression that followed, how Sarah had refused therapy, convinced she could just power through it, how she'd thrown herself into her career, moved to a new city, reinvented herself completely, how she'd seemed genuinely happy when she met me, like she'd finally moved past it all. But it was all still there, Maya said, just buried, and when David contacted her, it was like he unearthed all of it. Suddenly she was 24 again, grieving and lost and making terrible decisions. After we hung up, I had more information but no more clarity on what to do. I understood Sarah better now, but understanding didn't erase the betrayal. She'd lied to me for 5 years, by omission if not commission. She'd let me plan a future with her while keeping me in the dark about fundamental parts of her past. She'd emotionally cheated on me with her ex-husband and then only came clean because she got caught. But I also understood that she was damaged, traumatized, and probably needed help more than she needed judgment. I stayed away for another week, processing everything. I went to work, came back to Connor's, and spent my evenings trying to figure out what I actually wanted. Did I want to forgive Sarah and try to rebuild? Did I want to walk away completely? Did I want answers, closure, revenge? Revenge, the thought had occurred to me more than once. I could expose everything on social media. I could tell all our mutual friends what she'd done. I could make sure everyone knew that sweet, perfect Sarah was actually a liar who'd been sneaking around with her secret ex-husband. But every time I got close to doing something like that, I'd remember the pain in her eyes when I'd confronted her, and I couldn't do it. Then, on day 11 of our separation, something happened that changed everything. I got a call from Sarah's sister, Emily. We'd always gotten along well, and she'd been one of the people I'd arranged to be at the proposal. "Alex, I need to tell you something, and Sarah's going to kill me for it, but I think you deserve to know." My stomach dropped. What now? Sarah's in the hospital. She collapsed at work yesterday. Severe dehydration, exhaustion, they're running tests. I was in my car before Emily finished the sentence. What hospital? Alex, wait, before you rush over here, I need to tell you why I'm really calling. I pulled over. I'm listening. They ran blood work as part of the standard tests. Alex, Sarah's pregnant. The world tilted. What? She's about 6 weeks along. She didn't know, or if she did, she hadn't told anyone. They informed her this morning, and she's been hysterical ever since. She keeps asking for you, but she also keeps saying she can't face you. I thought you should know. I sat in my parked car, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Pregnant. Sarah was pregnant with my child. After everything that had happened, after all the lies and betrayal and chaos, we'd created a life together. Does anyone else know? I asked. Just me and the medical staff. My parents are flying in tomorrow. She hasn't told them why she's in the hospital yet. I need to think. Alex, I know she hurt you. I know this whole situation is fucked up, but she's terrified right now. The last time she was pregnant, she lost the baby and her marriage fell apart. She's convinced the same thing is going to happen again. I closed my eyes. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The drive to the hospital was a blur. I didn't know what I was going to say or how I was going to feel when I saw her. I was angry, confused, scared, and underneath it all, there was something else. A flicker of something that might have been hope or might have been the last gasp of a dying relationship. Emily met me in the lobby. She's in room 347. She's stable, just needs rest and fluids. But Alex, be gentle with her. Mentally, she's fragile right now. I took the elevator up, rehearsing and abandoning a dozen different opening lines. When I got to her room, the door was partially open. I could see Sarah lying in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, one hand on her still flat stomach. I knocked softly. She turned her head, and when she saw me, her face crumpled. "Alex," she whispered. I walked in and closed the door behind me, stood at the foot of her bed, keeping distance between us. Emily called me. "I'm pregnant. I heard. It's yours, in case you were wondering." The comment stung. I wasn't. She started crying, those silent tears that somehow hurt more than sobs. "I'm so sorry for everything, for lying, for David, for being too broken to love you the way you deserve." I pulled a chair up next to her bed but didn't sit. "Why didn't you tell me? About the marriage, the miscarriage, all of it?" "Because I was ashamed, because I wanted to be a different person with you, because I thought if I just didn't talk about it, it wouldn't matter. But it did matter. It all mattered. You let me plan a whole future with you while keeping me in the dark about your past. Do you know how that feels? Like I was in a relationship with a stranger." "I know, you're right. I was a coward. I am a coward." I finally sat down, exhausted by everything. "David told me you need therapy, that you never processed the trauma from your first marriage." She nodded. He's right. I thought I could just move forward, be strong, not let it define me, but it's been defining me this whole time anyway. What do you want, Sarah? And I mean really want, not what you think you should want or what would make everyone happy. What do you want? She looked at me with those green eyes that had captivated me 5 years ago at a wedding. I want to not be broken. I want to be capable of the kind of love you deserve. I want to be a good mother to this baby, if everything goes okay. Do you want to be with me? The pause before she answered told me everything. I don't know if I know how to be with anyone right now. I think I need to figure out how to be with myself first. It hurt, but it was the most honest she'd been with me in probably years. Okay. Okay. You're right, you need to work on yourself. Get therapy, deal with your trauma, figure out who you are and what you want. And I need space to figure out if I can ever trust you again. What about the babies? I looked at her hand on her stomach. That's not something we need to decide right now. First, you need to get healthy, physically and mentally. Then we can figure out how to co-parent or whatever this is going to be. You're not going to leave. I didn't say that, I said we'll figure it out. But Sarah, I need you to understand something. The relationship we had, that's over. I can't go back to the person I was before I found out you'd been lying to me for 5 years. If we're going to have any kind of future, as partners or just as co-parents, it has to be built on complete honesty from here on out. No more secrets. No more protecting me from your past. No more emotional affairs with ex-husbands. Complete transparency, or I'm done. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I can do that. I will do that. And you're going to get therapy, non-negotiable. Yes. And I'm going to get therapy too, because I clearly have my own shit to work through if I didn't see any of this coming. Okay. We sat there in silence for a while, the beeping of her monitors the only sound. Finally, I asked the question I'd been afraid to voice. Did you ever really love me, or was I just the safe choice after a traumatic first marriage? She looked at me with devastating honesty. I don't know. I thought I did. I wanted to. You made me feel safe and cared for in a way I'd never experienced. But I also think I was using you as a shield against having to do real emotional work on myself. And that's not fair to you. You deserved someone who was whole, or at least trying to be whole. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was an honest one. Thank you for telling me the truth. A nurse came in then to check Sarah's vitals and told me visiting hours were ending soon. I stood up to leave. Alex, Sarah called as I reached the door. Thank you for coming. You didn't have to. Yeah, I did. Despite everything, I still care about you. That doesn't just turn off. I left the hospital and sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour, trying to process this new development. A baby. I was going to be a father, with a woman I wasn't sure I could ever trust again, who wasn't sure she'd ever really loved me. Over the next few weeks, things were strange and strained. Sarah got out of the hospital and moved back into our apartment. I stayed at Connor's. We texted occasionally about practical things like bills and the apartment lease. She sent me proof that she'd started seeing a therapist twice a week. I started seeing one too. My therapist, Dr. Chen, helped me work through the betrayal and understand my own role in the relationship dynamics. Sometimes, she said in one session, we love the potential in someone more than we love the reality of who they are. And sometimes we mistake comfort and compatibility for passion and deep connection. I realized she was right. I'd loved the idea of Sarah, the future we could have together, more than I'd truly known the real, damaged, complicated person she was. And she'd done the same with me. We'd been using each other as placeholders for the relationships we actually wanted. Sarah and I met for coffee 3 weeks after the hospital incident. She looked better, healthier. There was a light in her eyes that I hadn't seen in a while, maybe ever. How are you feeling? I asked. Physically good, the baby's healthy so far. Mentally, I'm working through a lot. Therapy's hard but helpful. Good. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said. About us, about what I want, about what's fair to you. I braced myself and I think we should officially break up, not because I don't care about you, but because I do. You deserve someone who can love you without reservation, and I'm not that person. Maybe I could have been if I'd done this work years ago, but I didn't, and it's not fair to ask you to wait around while I figure out if I'll ever be capable of that kind of love. It hurt even though I'd been expecting it. What about the baby? I want to keep it. I know it's complicated and we're not together, but I want this baby, and I want you to be as involved as you want to be. If you want full custody, partial custody, just visitation, whatever you're comfortable with, we'll figure it out. I nodded slowly. I want to be involved. I want to be a father. But you're right, we can't stay together just because of the baby. That wouldn't be fair to anyone, including the kid. We talked logistics for a while. She'd stay in the apartment through the pregnancy. I'd continue paying my half of the rent from wherever I ended up living. We'd go to prenatal appointments together. We'd work with a mediator to figure out custody arrangements. As I was leaving, she grabbed my hand. Alex, for what it's worth, these 5 years with you were the most stable, peaceful years of my life, even if I wasn't capable of appreciating them properly. You're a good man, and you're going to make some lucky person very happy someday. You too, Sarah. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I left feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The relationship was over, officially, but we'd ended it honestly. No more pretense, no more avoiding the truth. I moved into my own place, a small one-bedroom apartment across town, started rebuilding my life as a single person, went on a few dates that went nowhere, focused on work, went to therapy every week, attended prenatal appointments with Sarah, and marveled at the ultrasound images of our growing baby. Then, about 4 months into Sarah's pregnancy, I got a Facebook message from someone I didn't know, a woman named Catherine. Hi Alex, you don't know me, but I'm David Thornton's fiancé. Or I was, until I found out about his ongoing relationship with his ex-wife. I know you were dating Sarah, and I thought you might want to know some things about what's really been going on. My blood ran cold. I agreed to meet her, same coffee shop where I'd met with David. Catherine was pretty, professional-looking, probably in her early 30s. She looked tired and angry. Thank you for meeting me, she said. I'll get right to it. David and Sarah have been sleeping together for the past 4 months. Since before your breakup, during it, and up until last week when I finally put all the pieces together and ended things. I felt like I'd been punched. What? No, Sarah and I broke up because she needed to work on herself. She's been in therapy. She's pregnant with my child. Catherine pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots, text messages between David and Sarah, explicit messages, photos, plans to meet up, messages dated from months ago, from during Sarah's hospitalization, from as recently as 3 days ago. I'm so sorry, Catherine said. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but David's been lying to both of us. He told me he'd cut off all contact with Sarah. He told you the same thing, I'm guessing, but they never stopped. They've been having an affair this entire time. I scrolled through the messages, feeling sick. Sarah talking about how guilty she felt. David saying they deserved happiness. Sarah saying she didn't know if the baby was mine or David's. David saying they'd figure it out together. The baby might not be mine's. The baby might not be mine's. I read that message 5 times before it fully sank in. There's more, Catherine said. I hired a private investigator after I started getting suspicious. David has been giving Sarah money, a lot of money, over $40,000 in the past 3 months. For what? I don't know, but I have bank statements showing the transfers. I thought you should know, especially if you're planning to be financially responsible for this baby. She slid a folder across the table. It's all in here. Text messages, bank statements, photos the investigator took of them together. I'm giving you this because we're both victims of their lies, and we deserve to know the truth. I took the folder with shaking hands. Why are you really doing this? She smiled sadly, because I wasted 3 years on David, planning a wedding, building a life, trusting him, and it was all bullshit. I can't get that time back, but maybe I can save you from wasting more of yours. And maybe, if we both confront them with evidence they can't deny, we'll get some actual answers. I went home and looked through everything in the folder. The evidence was damning. Photos of David and Sarah having dinner at restaurants across town, going into hotels, kissing in parking lots, text messages planning their meetings, talking about their feelings, discussing the pregnancy. One message in particular made me see red. It was from Sarah to David, dated 2 days after she told me we should break up. I know we're doing the wrong thing, but being with you feels more right than anything with Alex ever did. Is that terrible? David's response, it's honest. We were always meant to find our way back to each other. I called Maya. Did you know Sarah's been sleeping with David? Long silence. What? For months throughout her entire pregnancy. Did you know? No, oh my God, no. Alex, she told me she was done with him. She said therapy was helping her see clearly and she'd cut him off. Are you sure? I told her about Catherine, about the evidence. I could hear Maya crying on the other end. I can't believe she'd do this. After everything, after all the promises about honesty and transparency, I can't fucking believe her. There's more. She told David she doesn't know if the baby is mine or his. Maya gasped, "Oh shit, Alex, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" "I have no idea." We talked for a while longer, and Maya promised to confront Sarah, but I knew I needed to be the one to do it. This was my life, my potential child, my betrayal to address. I texted Sarah, "We need to talk, in person, tomorrow." She responded, "Okay, is everything all right?" I didn't answer. We met at a park neutral territory. She was showing now, clearly pregnant, and I felt a complicated mix of emotions looking at her belly. Was that my child in there, or was it David's? "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sitting on a bench. "I've been wanting to talk to you about increased visitation planning once the baby comes." I sat next to her and pulled out my phone, opening to the screenshots Catherine had sent me. "Who's the father, Sarah?" Her face went white. "What?" "The baby, is it mine or David's?" "It's yours, of course it's yours. Why would you even ask that?" I showed her the phone, her own words, telling David she wasn't sure. She looked like she might throw up. "Where did you get that?" "David's ex-fiancée. She hired a private investigator. Turns out you two haven't been quite as discreet as you thought." Sarah was crying now. "Alex, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're very good at explaining, at rationalizing, at making your betrayals sound like understandable mistakes. But I don't want explanations. I want the truth. Have you been sleeping with David?" She nodded, barely. "For how long?" "It started about a month before you found out about us talking. It was only supposed to be once, closure, but then it kept happening." "During your whole pregnancy?" "Yes." "While I was supporting you financially, coming to appointments, planning to co-parent?" "Yes." "While you were telling me you needed to work on yourself and couldn't be in a relationship?" "I know I'm a terrible person, I know that." I stood up, pacing. "Why the money? Why was David giving you $40,000? She looked surprised that I knew about that too. "I needed it." "For what?" She hesitated. "For medical bills, and for a deposit on a new apartment, and for other things." "What other things, Sarah? I'm done with the lies." "For a lawyer, in case you tried to get full custody of the baby." I laughed bitterly. "You were planning to fight me for custody, while I was being supportive and kind and trying to be there for you." "I was scared. I didn't know what you'd do when you found out the whole truth." "The whole truth being that you've been fucking your ex-husband for months, and the baby might not even be mine." She flinched. "It's yours. The timeline, it has to be yours." "Has to be? You're not even sure." "I'm pretty sure." I felt rage boil up in me, white hot and consuming. "We're getting a paternity test. As soon as the baby's born, we're testing. And if it's mine, we're going to court and I'm fighting for full custody because you're clearly not stable enough to be a primary parent." "You can't do that." "Watch me, you've been lying and manipulating for months. You're in an unhealthy relationship with your ex. You've been taking money from him and plotting against me. What judge would give you primary custody with all that?" "Alex, please, I made mistakes, but I love this baby. I'm getting help. I'm trying to be better." "You're not trying hard enough. You're still lying. You're still sneaking around, and I'm done being understanding about it." I walked away, leaving her crying on the park bench. I felt terrible and justified all at once. I tried to be compassionate, tried to understand her trauma and give her space to heal, and she'd used all of it as cover to continue her affair. I called Catherine. I confronted Sarah. "You were right about everything." "I'm sorry, I wish I'd been wrong." "What are you going to do about David?" "I already ended things, canceled the wedding, moved out of our apartment. I'm done. What about you?" "Paternity test as soon as the baby's born. If it's mine, I'm filing for full custody." "Good, they don't deserve our mercy." We talked for a while, bonding over our shared betrayal. It felt good to talk to someone who understood exactly what I was going through. "Hey," Catherine said before we hung up, "I know this is crazy timing, but would you want to get dinner sometime? As friends, I think we could both use someone who gets it." I hesitated, then agreed. We met for dinner 2 days later, and it was surprisingly easy. We talked about our relationships with David and Sarah, all the red flags we'd missed, all the lies we'd believed. We laughed at the absurdity of it all, commiserated over the pain. Over the next few months, Catherine and I became close, not romantically, just as friends who'd been through similar trauma. We attended each other's therapy sessions as support when our therapist suggested it. We helped each other process the betrayal and move forward. Sarah reached out multiple times, trying to apologize, trying to explain, trying to make amends. I stayed firm. I told her to communicate only about medical information regarding the pregnancy, and everything else could wait until after the paternity test. Maya kept me updated despite my distance. Sarah and David's relationship had imploded after Catherine and I confronted them. David had chosen his career over Sarah, afraid the scandal would affect his law practice. Sarah was alone, pregnant, and dealing with the consequences of her choices. Part of me felt bad for her. Part of me felt she'd earned every bit of pain she was experiencing. The baby, a girl, was born on a rainy Tuesday in October. Sarah texted me when she went into labor, and despite everything, I went to the hospital. I'd been there for every appointment, every ultrasound. I wasn't going to miss the birth, regardless of paternity. Labor was long and complicated. I held Sarah's hand through it, letting old instincts override current anger. When my daughter, because I couldn't help thinking of her as mine regardless of biology, was born, I cried. She was perfect, small and red and screaming, absolutely perfect. "She's beautiful," Sarah whispered, exhausted. "Yeah." The paternity test was done before we left the hospital. The next week, while we waited for results, was the longest of my life. I visited the baby every day, held her, fed her, changed her, fell completely in love with her. Sarah and I barely spoke, just coordinated care for our daughter, who we'd named Emma, a name we'd picked out together months ago, in a different lifetime when we thought we might still have a future. The results came back on a Friday. I opened the email alone in my apartment, hands shaking. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. She was mine, Emma was mine. I called Sarah, I got the results. And she's mine. Sarah started crying. Thank God. I mean, I knew she probably was, but I was so scared. "We need to talk about custody." "I know, can we do it in person?" We met at a family mediator's office the next week. I brought my lawyer. Sarah brought hers, paid for by David, which still made my blood boil. "I want full physical custody," I started, with visitation for Sarah. Sarah's lawyer jumped in. "That's absurd. Ms. Morrison is the mother. She's been primary caregiver since birth." Ms. Morrison has also been conducting an affair throughout her pregnancy, has demonstrated consistent dishonesty, and has accepted substantial sums of money from her affair partner to hire lawyers to fight the father for custody. I have documentation of all of it. We went back and forth for hours. Eventually, we reached an agreement, joint legal custody, with me having primary physical custody and Sarah getting her every other weekend and one evening a week. It wasn't what Sarah wanted, but it was better than the alternatives her lawyer had warned her about. "I want you to know," Sarah said as we were signing the papers, "I never stopped caring about you. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I do. Caring isn't the same as love, Sarah, and honestly, at this point, I don't think you know the difference." 6 months later, life had found a new normal. I had Emma most of the time, and she was the light of my life. Single fatherhood was exhausting but rewarding. My parents had moved closer to help out. Connor was the best uncle a kid could ask for. Sarah had her visitation, and to her credit, she was good with Emma. She continued therapy and seemed to be actually doing the work this time. David was completely out of the picture, both of our lives better for his absence. Catherine and I had remained friends, close friends. We'd helped each other heal, and somewhere along the way, the friendship had started to shift into something else. We took it slow, both of us wary after our previous relationships, but there was something real there, something built on honesty and shared experience. On Emma's first birthday, I threw a party at my apartment. Family, friends, even Sarah came with her new therapist-approved boyfriend. It was amicable, civil, healthy. Catherine helped me set up decorations, and as we watched Emma destroy her first birthday cake, she leaned against me. "You've built a pretty good life here." "Yeah, I have, not the one I planned, but a good one. Sometimes the unplanned ones are better." I looked at Emma covered in frosting and laughing hysterically, at my parents playing with her, at Connor taking ridiculous photos, at Sarah looking on with a mix of sadness and acceptance, at Catherine beside me, solid and real and honest. "Yeah," I agreed, "sometimes they really are." The story could end there, a neat bow on a messy situation, but life's never that simple, is it? 2 weeks after Emma's birthday, I got a call from Marcus. the private investigator friend who'd first identified David for me. Alex, I don't know if you want to know this, but I thought you should have the option. What is it? I still have some alerts set up from when I was looking into David Thornton. He just filed for bankruptcy, and there's something weird about it. He's claiming massive debts, including to a Sarah Morrison. Sarah, why would he owe her money? That's what's weird. According to the filing, he owes her over $200,000, but you told me he was giving her money, not the other way around. I felt that old familiar dread creep back in. Can you dig deeper? Already on it, I'll call you back. He called back 3 hours later. Alex, this is wild. I don't have all the pieces yet, but from what I can tell, David and Sarah might have been running some kind of scam. There are multiple money transfers, not just the ones you knew about, shell companies, real estate deals that went nowhere. I think you need to lawyer up, because if they were scamming people, you might be implicated just by association. I immediately called my lawyer, who brought in a forensic accountant. Over the next month, a picture emerged that I never could have imagined. David and Sarah's affair hadn't been just about rekindled passion or unfinished business. It had been about money. David's law practice was failing, hemorrhaging money from bad investments and malpractice lawsuits. Sarah had come up with a plan. They'd use their love story and her pregnancy to scam money from sympathetic people. They'd created a crowdfunding page I knew nothing about, telling a story about a single mother escaping an abusive relationship and trying to raise her baby alone. People had donated thousands. They'd taken out loans in both their names and in Sarah's name alone, claiming the money was for medical expenses and baby supplies. They'd approached David's wealthy clients with sob stories about Sarah's situation, collecting loans they never intended to repay. My name had been used in some of these schemes. Documents had been forged with my signature. I'd been made to look like the abusive ex-Sarah was fleeing from in the crowdfunding story. When confronted with the evidence, Sarah initially denied everything. Then she tried to claim David had forced her into it. Then she finally admitted they'd planned it together, but she'd only done it because she was desperate and scared. I needed money for Emma, she sobbed in my lawyer's office. I needed to know we'd be secure. So you committed fraud, my lawyer said flatly, and implicated your daughter's father in the process. The legal fallout was extensive. David was disbarred and faced criminal charges. Sarah pleaded guilty to fraud and was sentenced to probation and community service, avoiding jail time due to being a new mother. She had to pay back the money she'd scammed, which would take her years. I had to fight to prove I wasn't involved, which took months and cost me thousands in legal fees. The stress of it all was overwhelming. Through it all, Catherine was there. She'd been pulled into it too, as David had apparently used her name and image in some of his schemes as well. We weathered it together, our bond strengthened by shared adversity. When everything finally settled, when the legal issues were resolved, and Sarah was legally prohibited from being alone with Emma until she completed her probation requirements, I sat in my apartment feeling emotionally exhausted. Catherine came over with wine and takeout. We sat on my couch, Emma asleep in her crib, and just breathed. Is it finally over? I asked. I think so. Sarah can't legally screw with you anymore. David's going to prison. We're both free of them. I can't believe I spent 5 years with someone I didn't know at all. Catherine took my hand. You knew the version of herself she showed you. That's all any of us can know about another person, but you survived it, you got Emma out of it, and you learned what you actually need in a partner. What's that? Honesty, transparency, someone who's done their work, someone who chooses you clearly and without reservation. I looked at her, someone like you. She smiled. I was hoping you'd notice. We'd been dancing around our feelings for months, both afraid to jump into something new. But sitting there, after everything we'd been through, it felt right. I notice, I said. I've been noticing for a while. We started dating officially after that, took it slow, introducing her gradually to Emma, building something real on a foundation of hard-won honesty. My parents loved her. Connor approved. Even Maya, who'd remained my friend through all the Sarah drama, thought we were good together. Sarah wasn't happy about it when she found out. Sent me several angry texts about how quickly I'd moved on, how I clearly never loved her if I could replace her so easily. I didn't respond. My lawyer had advised minimal contact, and besides, I was done explaining myself to her. A year later, Catherine moved in. Emma called her Cat and loved her unreservedly the way kids do when someone is genuinely kind to them. We became a little family, unconventional but solid. Sarah got her visitation increased to every other weekend once she completed her probation requirements. She was working as a waitress, paying off her debts, apparently actually in therapy and doing the work this time. She had a new boyfriend who seemed stable and kind. She was civil during exchanges, appropriate with Emma, and kept her drama to herself. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was acceptance. She was Emma's mother, and for Emma's sake, we maintained a functional co-parenting relationship. 2 years after the proposal that never happened, Catherine and I went back to that same gazebo where I'd planned to propose to Sarah. "Why are we here?" she asked as we walked up to it at sunset. "Because I'm reclaiming this place. It doesn't get to be the site of my worst moment anymore. I want it to be something better." I got down on one knee and her eyes widened. "Alex. Catherine, you've seen me at my worst. You've helped me through betrayal and fraud charges and single parenthood and all my trust issues. You've loved Emma like she's your own. You've been honest even when it was hard, present even when it was messy, and patient while I figured out how to trust again. Will you marry me?" She was crying and nodding. Yes, God, yes. The ring I put on her finger was nothing like the one I'd bought for Sarah. We'd picked it out together because Catherine believed in making big decisions as a team. The proposal wasn't a surprise, not really. We talked about marriage, about our future, about what we both wanted. But the moment, the gesture, that was for her. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Emma was the flower girl, taking her job very seriously at 3 years old. My parents cried happy tears. Connor's best man speech was inappropriate and perfect. Even Sarah sent a polite congratulations text. It wasn't the life I'd planned 5 years ago. It was better, built on truth instead of illusion, chosen instead of assumed, earned instead of expected. Sometimes I think about that night at the hospital when Sarah told me she didn't know if she loved me. At the time, it was devastating. Now I'm grateful, because she was right. What we had wasn't real love. It was two people playing roles they thought they should play, going through motions they thought would lead to happiness. Real love, I learned, is what I have with Catherine. It's choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. It's being honest even when it hurts. It's building something real instead of performing something perfect. Emma's 5 now, in kindergarten, smart and funny and loving. She has a mom who's doing better and working hard to be present in her life. She has a dad who would do anything for her. And she has Catherine, who loves her fiercely and completely. Sarah's doing okay too, from what I can tell from our brief interactions at school events and exchanges. She's still in therapy, still working on herself. She has a stable relationship with a guy who seems decent. She shows up for Emma consistently. That's all I can ask for. David got out of prison after 18 months and moved to another state. I heard through Maya that he remarried quickly and has 2 stepkids. I hope he learned something from the whole disaster, but honestly, I don't think about him much anymore. The money we both lost to legal fees and Sarah's schemes was significant, but Catherine and I rebuilt. We bought a house together last year. We're talking about having a baby of our own. Life is full and good. On quiet nights when Emma's asleep and Catherine and I are just existing together in comfortable silence, I sometimes marvel at how differently things turned out than I expected. If Sarah had said yes to that proposal, if she'd been honest from the start, if any number of things had gone differently, I'd be in a completely different life right now. Maybe I'd be married to someone who didn't really love me, raising a daughter in a house full of secrets and resentment. Maybe I'd still be that guy who thought he knew his girlfriend after 5 years, blissfully unaware of the stranger I was actually living with. Instead, I'm here, scarred but healed, wiser but not cynical, happy in a way I didn't know was possible. The betrayal nearly broke me. The revelations shattered my faith in my own judgment. The legal nightmare tested every bit of resilience I had, but somehow, on the other side of all that pain, I found something real. People ask me sometimes if I regret the 5 years with Sarah. I don't. Emma exists because of that relationship, and Emma is the best thing that ever happened to me. Plus, those 5 years taught me exactly what I don't want in a partner, which made it crystal clear that Catherine is what I do want. Sarah texted me last month. I know this is random, but I wanted to say thank you for being a good dad to Emma, for not turning her against me even though you had every right to. And I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I mean it. I'm sorry for all of it. I showed the text to Catherine. What should I say? Whatever feels right to you. I wrote back, we're good. Focus on being the best version of yourself for Emma. That's all that matters now. And it was true, we were good. Not friends, probably never would be, but we were functional co-parents raising a great kid. The anger had faded, replaced by indifference and occasional gratitude that things worked out the way they did. Life's funny like that. The worst thing that ever happened to me led directly to the best things. Emma, Catherine, a real, honest relationship built on actual love instead of comfortable lies. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never come home early that day, if I'd never overheard Sarah with David, if I'd proposed and she'd said yes out of guilt or obligation or fear. We might have gotten married, had more kids, lived in that house we talked about. And I would have been miserable without ever knowing why. So yeah, my girlfriend screamed at me about bringing up marriage after 5 years, but she was right to scream. Not because I was wrong to want marriage, but because our entire relationship was built on a foundation that couldn't support that kind of commitment. The real story wasn't about a failed proposal. It was about dodging a bullet I didn't know was aimed at me, about finding out the truth before making a legally binding commitment to someone I didn't actually know, about losing everything I thought I wanted and discovering what I actually needed. And in the end, despite all the pain and betrayal and drama, I came out better for it. Not unscathed, but stronger. Not naive, but not bitter either. Just more myself than I'd ever been. Emma just called out from her room. Bad dream. Catherine's already up, heading to comfort her because that's who she is. Present, reliable, honest, real. I follow her down the hall, and together we sit with our daughter until she falls back asleep. This, right here, is what I thought I had with Sarah, but this is real. This is chosen. This is built on truth. And it's everything I never knew I needed until I lost everything I thought I wanted.